welcome to Farside. I'm so excited to have you here. You've joined us all the way from Tokyo, so thank you for fitting this in your time schedule. But would love to learn more about you, Ren. Would love to have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, have to be joining from Tokyo. But yeah, my name's Ren. I am the founder of SenseSpace and also recently Tokyo DAO. And so excited to talk about what we're up to on both of those fronts today. But originally from New York, I'm half
Oh,
Japanese, but have lived in Japan for the last 8 years or so. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
amazing. Okay, that's awesome. So you said you're from New York. So I'm curious, like,
Yes.
when did you get into the crypto space and what has been your journey with Farcaster?
Sure. So that's I won't go. I want to make sure we keep this within a reasonable amount of time. So I won't do the full narrative story arc here. But yeah. So in terms of me getting into crypto, I used to work. I mean, I guess if we go like all the way back, as somebody who straddles different communities, especially between Japan and the US and
Yeah.
between technology and creative communities, get crypto is something that like made a lot of sense to me. And just being able to have sort of these network layers on top of sort of our existing societal network layers that lived on the internet and that were inherently global and that sort of connected all of us. I didn't really, I didn't think about sort of crypto at this academic of a layer when I was, starting to play around with stuff when I first started to get involved. But I think now that we're here today, just feels like it makes a lot of sense to
Yeah.
me. And so, in terms of my journey, I actually I used to work in venture capital, used
Oh,
to work at a VC fund in that was between sort of Tokyo and the States. And I can't mention who our lead investor was, but they were a big Japanese telecommunications company. And one of our investment areas was looking at sort of the more in like the content and services layer. And so, what are new forms of media and applications accelerated by sort of new forms of the internet? And started to really get excited about this sort of content layer that lived on top of the application layer, and really started to study NFTs from there. And at the time, there were a lot of metaverse theses
yeah.
floating around, and so studied all those too. And so that's what sort of initially piqued my interest. And then, sort of outside of my VC work, I also a few years ago founded my own indie hip hop label here in Japan, partnering up with a guy from Genius in the States as well. And so was doing these sort of cross border collaborations. And during COVID, actually, we were putting together a song with a Japanese Jamaican rapper named Daichi Yamamoto and a Chicago based rapper named Mick Jenkins. And the we created a song together. That part is pretty simple. You kind of just
Really?
throw record features and send them around, and somebody mixes and masters it. And so that's not that part of things wasn't too bad. But especially during COVID, the artists I had, Daichi I had met in person and Mick more online, but both seemed like really cool. Both are very cool people, and so wanted to figure out a way that they could connect and collaborate in a way that wasn't just like sending music files around. And so initially actually partnered up with an haute couture designer who made this like kimono inspired streetwear jacket, which is really cool.
Oh my God.
But we did shoots in Tokyo and Chicago with them on, but they still felt quite far away.
Mm.
And so what we actually ended up doing was partnering with a 3D designer, making like 3D rendered versions of the jackets. Partnered with a guy who did some old Blood Orange music video animations, who does like very low poly, sort of kind of Nintendo 64 GoldenEye type animation work, and made a music video with them wearing these digital jackets in the video and sold like dancing versions of those jackets as NFTs. And so
Whoa.
that was actually my sort of first first foray into actually releasing an NFT. And we ended up having sort of at the time a small like meet and greet with the artists in crypto voxels. And
Wow.
that was sort of my first foray into sort of not from the investment side, but more from I guess like the creator builder side, into
Mhm.
NFTs and Paper Mag and Folk Singapore. We ended up doing like a collaboration with DressX sort of off the back of that as well. And so, this idea of just like crypto being a layer, NFTs being a layer to connect cultures and borders was something that, I was testing and learning around. And so that, that's what brought me into crypto, and I'm still here today. And yeah, in 2022, I ended up leaving sort of the VC side for the time being and going full sort of builder entrepreneur side. And in terms of your question around Farcaster, really, as did a bunch of people, came in this sort of frames degen wave.
Oh,
Frames really, as somebody who is, got interested in this idea of like this interoperable content layer on top of the application layer, the idea that frames could be a portal for content between applications, like that concept kind of struck a chord with me. And so,
yeah.
Immediately our team, we hadn't been building on Farcaster really at all, or really looking at Farcaster at all. When that sort of hit, really decided to go full on and learn more. And have since then pivoted to focus, SenseSpace side entirely on building sort of games and community on Farcaster. And, sort of as an extension of that, Tokyo DAO kind of just appeared. And so that was a
That's
decently long story arc, but that's before crypto to during crypto to now.
I mean, no, it's an incredible journey. Like, imagine just going from like music into like
Mm-hmm.
Web3, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd love to pick your brain on that a bit later as well. But so, do you see? I don't know how much were you in crypto while you were living in New York as well?
So no. Uh,
Okay,
I got into crypto specifically when I was getting into the VC work, and so that was like 2020 or so, like
gotcha.
early 2020. And so when we were all locked up, as a lot of other people did, that's when I started to tinker a bit.
Got it. Okay, because I'm curious, like, what does the crypto scene in Tokyo and Japan look like compared
Hmm.
to like
Hmm.
maybe in New York? What has been your like observations?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think even the crypto scene has different layers, right? Like I think
Yeah.
investors in sort of institutional investment and like more broadly DeFi, and then more of these like fun toy like consumer crypto products. Like I do think that they run in very different lanes, especially in Japan. I think there's more overlap in the West than there is in Japan. But I think when it comes to, I guess, more of like the consumer facing side, which is what we've been playing around with at SenseSpace, I think what I would say is that because there wasn't as big of a high as sort of what happened in the West in 2021 into 2022. NFTs, there isn't 100% awareness of, I think in the West it's not that people understand what NFTs are, but they've heard of it a lot. A lot of people have seen
Yeah.
Bored Apes in some capacity. And so, as opposed to in Japan, it isn't 100% awareness, right? Around sort of NFTs and these sort of products. I mean, people have heard of Bitcoin, but not much more than that. And so, or I mean, this is more just very broad strokes. But I think because there isn't sort of crypto and NFTs didn't sort of reach the public consciousness in the same way as they did a few years back in the States or in New York. That I think there's a really it's almost like you're operating within a blank canvas more so.
Yeah.
And so the scene is relatively small, very creator driven, creator led. But I think, kind of playing to Japan's strengths, I think of the fact that sort of the sentiment around crypto is relatively neutral here. That
Mhm.
there's an opportunity to, I think change that. Um,
Yeah.
and that is a journey in and of itself. But I think how I think about the difference is that because you don't have sort of the same sort of negative sentiment pressures as you do in the States, that there's a
Mhm.
really big opportunity to sort of establish a new baseline, I guess, by creating really cool experiences and
Yeah.
building sort of new communities on chain.
Yeah, and this is why Tokyo Now is needed.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
I'm excited to see like, what you start spinning out or like how Tokyo Now starts emerging. And given we're talking about Tokyo Now, I would love to like
mm-hmm.
understand how you started Tokyo Now,
Yeah.
what's your like vision with it. And then we can also get into like Sun Space as well with that.
Sure. So with Tokyo DAO, how it came about really was, a few of us early as in like this is like 3.5 months ago. But a few of us when the Japanese channel was only like 100 people. Now it's like 5 or 6 thousand, I think. But
Wow.
when it was 100 people or so, a few of us found each other on Farcaster and said, "Hey, we want to meet up in person." Initially set
Nice.
the date. Thought like 10 or 15 people would come. We posted the event on Webcast, and like slowly but surely, like the numbers started to pile up. And we were originally going to have it in my office, sort of our first meetup, but we ended up it was going to be like 40 people, and so ended up having a few days before I like found a space, got a bunch of Domino pizzas.
Oh,
Domino's,
nice.
by the way, is actually much better in Japan. It's a
Really?
little known fact than it is
Well, I need to visit
in the
Japan.
States.
I need to visit.
I wouldn't visit for the Domino's, but I think they're better things. But yeah, so got some snacks, some drinks, and a bunch of people who were building. A bunch of builders came actually.
Wow.
And so what we ended up doing is we took a picture of the meetup and then posted it on Farcaster and said, "Hey, like if you want to support the event, please tip this post." And off the back of that, we ended up raising much more than the event
That
had
is amazing.
cost. And so I wasn't just going to take this. I and a few others sort of helped sort of put on the event. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like we were just going to go run and pocket it. And so, it took us a few conversations to decided, why don't we build some sort of entity to, help sort of connect sort of the Tokyo builder and creator community to the world. And so, that's sort of how Tokyo DAO, came about. And, I think the vision is just that, right? It's really
Yeah.
about being a hub between sort of the Tokyo builder and creator community and the world, starting, very much starting within Farcaster. And but
Hmm.
I think the vision is that ethos extends past a single social media platform. I think
Nice.
it's more of just like how can we how can we, especially in a country like Japan where, English speaking levels are generally, within the developed world quite low, like how can we ensure that like these amazing builders and creators have the best possible opportunity to, maximize their outcomes. And so, having a hub or, a hub or an ally to do that, and really a community to start with too, I think is really compelling. And so, Tokyo DAO, the vision is, in the short term, hopefully putting on a conference soon,
Oh,
in
yes.
terms of very concrete visions. But I think sort of in the longest term, just if you want to do something on Farcaster or in Web3 more broadly, that you can reach out to Tokyo DAO, and sort of the other
Wow.
way as well. And
Yeah.
so and then just being a catalyst for anything that sort of furthers that mission. And so,
Yeah.
I think near term, very concrete goals around not only sort of a relatively large conference, but also, continuing to help builders and creators in the ways that we can. And then sort of longer term, really just scaling that effort. And so,
Yeah.
still very much, what we're in month two, I guess. I think
Okay. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
started
Very
calling
early
it
time.
Tokyo DAO. We started calling it Tokyo DAO maybe early mid April, maybe. So 2 months. It's crazy. It
Nice.
feels like a lot less than a lot more than 2 months. But right now we
Same.
have like a little over 200 members, I want to say.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that I'd say like 30% of it's actually in Japan. And I think I think I think that's a big opportunity, but it also means that I guess two things, like Tokyo DAO has an opportunity to truly execute on that hub vision because we have people from overseas that are interested in supporting and want to contribute and want to be a part of what we're doing. But I also see it as an opportunity to continue to grow sort of the Japanese
Yeah.
population that's a part of Tokyo DAO. But we're 3 meetups in, and we've had about 30 to
Amazing.
40 people at each of them. And we have another two scheduled, one for later this month with some support from Ted. So thank you, Ted. And then
Wow.
another one during EdCon, which is a Ethereum developers conference in July. And so, continuing to, really try to excite the local community around Farcaster and connect that to the rest of the world.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear, especially like, you were mentioning the awareness of Web3 in Japan is quite low. And
Mm-hmm.
IRL is the way to go, especially for spreading that awareness. And that's really exciting. Like, you guys
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm-hmm.
shipping these meetups, continue. Like I think I was talking to Yash, or well, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
YB, and he was
Mm-hmm.
like, the next FarCon I want it in Tokyo. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think with having these small community meetups, and even just emerging as a country, or building a
Mm-hmm.
community around the country for especially Web3 builders on Farcaster on base, if we start doing more of these, the international builder community just gets tighter and tighter, and it just
Yeah,
grows, especially in terms of awareness.
yeah.
So that's really, really exciting. And I know FBI like started out on the same boat as well, right? And
Mm.
you see it pay off, right? The more
Yeah.
IRL stuff you do, you see like the awareness spreading, you see the community growing, and it just feels like there's something here, and we need to like push this forward. So that's super awesome that you're doing that with Tokyo DAO. And is Sunspace? Tell me more about Sunspace as well.
Yeah.
Are you kind of doing
So
some collaboration too?
yeah, so Sunspace, Tokyo DAO are sort of moving in parallel, though I think there
Yeah,
is some level of overlap in terms of mission. Sunspace started up in 2020, mid 2022, really with a vision towards, trying to create a new paradigm around brand building when it came to digital
nice.
goods. What we felt about, I think there's a lot of great things that came out of the first wave of, or the sort of 2021, 2022 bull market wave around NFTs in terms of just bringing things to the broader consciousness and experimentation and testing. But, I think that when brands grow that, or I guess projects grow that quickly for there to truly, and they grow that quickly in a distributed manner, for there to truly be brand behind them, I think it can happen sometimes, but at times the economic incentives can outpace the brand values. And so
Yeah,
how do we think about especially like taking notes from our team members. We're all folks from the streetwear community, and so like how do we take sort of notes from the early days of how the streetwear scene was built in Harajuku to try to build a net new digital goods scene in
yeah.
Japan. And I think actually what's interesting is that we've done a lot of IRL activations as well,
Wow.
with SenseBase, and we've done sort of several NFT releases. We were building. So actually, to take a step back here, SenseBase, the brand concept is that we have a series of characters that we made for ourselves and members
Oh,
of sort of the creative community in Tokyo, and sort of create a bunch of different stories around them. And based on those stories, do different NFT releases. And so, very much sort of this bottoms up effort through this IP to build this scene around us. And I think we've done some really good work building community, and some really exciting releases. I think, going into this year, one of sort of the key decisions that we made is that, it's an effort, that sort of IP building effort is something that we want to continue. But I think it's a much longer sort of
yeah.
haul, I guess, in
Oh,
terms
for
of,
sure.
we are, the artists that we are working with and building characters for are very much Web2 folks that we are onboarding through this
Yeah,
IP. And to get them to do something with their character post them receiving it is a pretty hefty education effort, and doing that
yeah,
within the IP itself as well. And so, working on some ideas around sort of open sourcing the IP a bit more,
yeah.
and making it sort of
Mhm.
a longer tail effort to build that. But, as opposed, going into this year, that was very much SenseBase to date, sort of through 2023, was very much I guess, bringing Web2 creators into Web3 through this IP that we're building. But this year, I've kind of pivoted quite a bit to just go full crypto native, and have seen
Yeah,
like very much a accelerated impact in terms of how we're able to build community around what we're doing through that. And so
yeah.
we launched a game. Do you know what a gashapon machine is, by chance?
No, I don't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, yeah. So a gachapon machine is like these Japanese capsule toy machines. And so
Okay.
like think like there's like a Pokemon machine and a Mario machine and a Kirby machine, and you're like
Tamagotchi.
pulling and pulling and pulling until you get the Pikachu that you really wanted, sort of thing.
Oh,
Um,
oh, okay, I see.
and so we did a gachapon and sort of inspired project on Webcast called Ball, and I'm actually wearing the T-shirt, the Baller T-shirt right now.
So cool.
But it was a super simple game. It was more, our first foray into Farcaster, and so wanted to test something relatively simple where effectively it was the same concept, except when you minted the NFTs, as opposed to us taking all the revenues against them, we pushed 95% of that into prize pool. And so after about
Mm,
16,000 mints, you ended up with like 10 ETH in the prize pool, and so somebody ended up very happy at the end of it.
cool.
And so that was our first little game that we did on Farcaster, but we felt it was, I think it was a lot of fun in the sense that like we started with purely the meme of like what's in the ball, and like
Yeah.
that, like before anybody knew what was going on, we had like 5,000 mints and a few ETH in the pool, and so I think that like that sort of community building, audience building effort was a good learning experience for us. But
Yeah.
ultimately, like one person won most everything, and yes, it's like everybody's putting money into the pool, but it was not. You're not putting in money into the pool for like the next person to win. You're putting money in the pool for you to
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to build a mechanic that felt less PvP and more community driven. And so, that's what we're starting to test with our new game, House of Cardians or
Card.
Card. And so
Yeah.
yeah, what we're up to right now.
Okay, amazing. I'm so happy you mentioned like the games you were trying to experiment with,
Mm-hmm.
especially with ball, and what like this idea unlocked this past couple of days, um, from like different conversations I was having, and I think like the best way you onboard folks is to tap into activities that they're already doing, right? So I know like gaming is huge in Japan. Anime market is huge in Japan, and like you've seen what Shibuya is doing, right? Like with their anime IPs, right? How do you, as a fan, how can I get involved with the IP? I can mint a producer pass, right? Like they're like fun ways to start getting involved with something that I already like. Like if I already like anime, I see Shibuya's new IP. How do I get involved with that? And that mechanism is Web3, and they really abstract it away. I think they do a good job with that. And similarly, you guys are doing the same with gaming. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this card, alpha, I don't know if it's alpha drop, it's already out there, but
Mm-hmm.
this card game I feel like is a fun new way to do this as well. So tell us a little bit about card and what
Yeah.
yeah, how that's spun out.
I'm fine to go full alpha drop. A lot
Okay,
of the stuff
awesome.
is
Alpha
dropping
drop.
dropping soon. I'm not entirely sure when this is dropping, but I'm fine to alpha drop here. But yeah, so we've passed out. We started the card actually got a deploy on Degen Week grant. And
Okay.
so that was quite a long time ago. But just timing wise, it ended up with Farcon. We wanted to launch it before Farcon, but we were also doing a collaboration with the meme coin Crash for Farcon, and so
Okay.
we ended up doing that and then pushing this back a bit. But because we pushed this back a bit, we revisited a lot of the game mechanics around it and feel super excited around where we landed on, which we call it, or I call it as of yesterday, sort of instantaneous dynamic rewards. And so what instantaneous means is that there's a time element to
Yeah.
it, and the time element, as opposed to just like points stacking, but effectively sort of based on how you're contributing to that community at a specific period of time.
Oh,
Your points being calculated, and sort of that being dynamic in nature based on the different variables that you're putting in. And so card itself is, first we started with a set of VIP passes. People are getting referral passes to refer their friends into the game soon. But it's do you know the game card game War by chance? Like
yes,
literally
yes, I
just
know.
I heard a card.
Yeah, I know War.
So it's largely based off of War, and so what'll happen is that you'll have a bunch of cards, and you will set your game, and somebody else will find your game in the feed, and then you won't see their card, but you'll put your card down, and then you'll battle each other.
Wow.
But just by winning is not how you get rewarded. You know, Playing a lot also helps you. Winning also gets you points, but also how many games the people you refer play
Oh,
also gets you points, as well as how many games everybody's played together,
yeah.
as well as like the delta in like the biggest jumpers, people's points. And so it's not just about, because like delta is involved, as well as not just you playing as well, the people that you bring in sort of continuing to support this community, as well as the idea that sort of you're also like continuing to grow your activity within this community.
Yeah.
Those sort of dynamic factors being involved, and then also like your heat is this metric that we're calling it, also decays. And so it's
Oh,
not just like how many points that you've gotten determines your rewards, but actually like how many points you have gotten over these last few days, and sort of that velocity impacts your
nice.
points. And so your rewards are actually the reward system is actually built on superfluid, and so
Oh, very cool.
based on that dynamic metric,
Yeah.
that you get your reward second by second. And so we think, granted, we're playing around with this concept within a game context. We think the idea of like sort of almost like heat mapping your contribution to communities over time and paying that out on a second by second basis is kind of a cool new concept that can be scaled not
I love
only
it.
within games. And so,
Yeah.
and it feels more equitable than just first person in or who's paid
No,
the most.
agreed.
And so, this is a new metric that we're testing out with this game, but are super excited about what we can learn from it. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, card, you're just playing people and feed. But also, sorry, one other twist on war as well is that it's not just if you play the highest card, yes, you win, but the points that you get more if you win with a lower card. And so effectively, like, it's not like there's a little bit of strategy there as opposed to just
Yeah.
like just play your highest card, because ultimately you could keep playing your highest cards and not get a ton of points in return for them. And so
Wow.
there's a few different strategy pieces that we've implemented, but ultimately it's just put your card down in frame and play the other person in frame. And so, like, in practice it's very simple, but super excited about just what we can learn from this testing
This funding,
experience.
yeah. That's amazing. I got my card, so I'm really excited for it.
Thank you, thank you.
So this is brilliant. Like I love this mechanism of it's a game, but at the same time it's an incentive for people to contribute back to the community. So is this for like Farcaster native users, or like can anyone from like outside of Farcaster join as well?
Sure. So this game is actually entirely in frame, and so this
Oh, it's in
is
a frame.
only on
Okay, cool.
Farcaster. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you'll like play your card in a frame, share it, and then so pick your cards in a frame, play your cards in the frame, and then share that, and then somebody else picks up your frame, the feed, and says like, "I want to play Ishika and play you," sort of thing.
Oh, okay. Very, very cool. Amazing.
Mhm.
Wow. I'm excited. This is, I think, like gaming on Farcaster, especially on like the L3, is a use case I've always been really excited about. And I'm loving to see how this pans out. And so, okay, so with the Senspace, do you think
Mhm.
I feel like there could be a cool collaboration here with Senspace and, a new game on top of it, like with especially with like some of the artists you're working with, like if they could
Mhm.
do something on Farcaster in terms of like Coop Records, right? For example, like there could be a cool
Mhm.
collaboration there in terms of like I'm an artist, like I want to grow my community as an artist and I can do like fun games on chain, or even just like I don't know, they're like fun mechanisms I feel like to grow as an artist on chain and IRL too, like okay, so every time I think about IRL and gaming, especially with Web3, I think about Pokemon Go. And like this geographical area where I can go into and like pick up things and collect it. Like, of course, in terms of a digital collectible. I feel like that's something interesting to explore. I'm just like dropping ideas here and I'm just
Mhm. Mhm.
having a mind dump here with Sense Space. But
Yeah,
this,
I
yeah,
think in terms of and in terms of SenseSpace, like, we are now fully focused on building these sort of experiences and building community on
yeah,
Farcaster, and so Card is built by SenseSpace. And
amazing.
I think in terms of like the broader community around SenseSpace and the broader community around Tokyo DAO and bringing them into Farcaster, I think what I get excited about is, I think there's, the like technology layer aspect of things, but I think about it more as like, for people who are interested in reaching a new, highly engaged global audience, like, I think the recontextualization aspect of things is quite
Yeah,
exciting. I think the idea that you can sort of, especially when this community doesn't have context around who you are, and I think that can be difficult too. And I think creators coming in who aren't in
yeah,
Web3, like, understanding the Web3 context is quite difficult too. But I think reaching, having this sort of early mover advantage to reach a global audience,
yeah,
who is excited to meet you, is like very excited to meet you, in our small quarter of the internet, so to speak. I think
right.
that from a like 0 to 1 perspective is extraordinarily compelling. And so, I think in terms of that community layer of like, if Japanese artists make a concerted effort to introduce themselves to this community, I think that there's really big, I mean, not just like financial upside, but I think like
Yeah,
one thing that I do think, and not to digress too much here, like, one thing I do think people get confused sometimes is that I think like artists want attention first. And I think that like
Right.
if you get the attention, the money will come in some
Right.
capacity. But I think specifically from like a pure artist perspective, like people want new forms of expression and people want new
Yeah.
audiences. And I think that that argument needs to be made more than the like pure creator economy argument in my mind,
Yes.
where
I
it's
agree.
like you can, you know, what are new ways that you can communicate and engage your fans by bringing your work on chain, and who is interested in learning more about you or listening to your content or
Right.
looking at your art. If you do that right, the money will come. And I think the
Yeah, I
order
agree.
gets flipped a lot. And I think that really pushes away, especially the more successful artists,
Yeah.
because they, and this is like, I'm speaking from like firsthand experience as well on this, which is like they are not necessarily like they're excited. You know, nobody's going to say no to new money coming in, but I
Right.
think people are more excited about the new form of expression first,
It's a two-way
um,
street. Yeah.
and then the money will come second. And so maybe I'm speaking about a very specific tier of artists as well, but
No, but I agree with you there.
I think it's a point that can't be overstated. And so in terms of the Farcaster opportunity, I think it's just like the community is still relatively small, right? We're talking
Yeah.
what on a good day 60,000, 70,000 DAUs, and so it's a small community, but a small community that's super down to engage with your content. And so, like, if you want to
Yeah.
reach users from around the world or people from around the world that you're not reaching today, and have them become your
Exactly.
advocates, I think that at a very base level is a huge opportunity.
Right. Two things pop up for me right now with
Mm-hmm.
this conversation. Like one, it's a two-way street, and I feel like if you're an upcoming and emerging artist, like the best thing you can do is interact with your community on a very intimate level, right? And when you like give a community, like you mentioned, different ways of expression, you're building a community for yourself. I think a lot of the times now what we see with artists, it's a one-way expression, like artist to community, and there's not much of there's no mechanism for the community to express their like appreciation or growth for the artist. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way to do that back, right? And I think this is what Farcaster unlocks, right? So that's very exciting. Like one, it gives artists a way to one create a community around their art, whatever their mode of expression is. Two, different modes of expression in terms of interacting with their community. And three, like you mentioned, it just gives their voice now on a global platform. And this is why this stands out more than other social medias like Instagram, because most of those are in Web2 are one way street. So that's like a super exciting opportunity. And I think that this is kind of the new trend in terms of artists. And two, I feel like how the whole narrative of one base being this global network. And I see this really coming into play with the fact that, yes, you've started Tokyo DAO, right? In terms of context, Tokyo DAO is meant for builders in Japan and in Tokyo. But at the same time, maybe I, on your behalf, can host a meetup for Tokyo DAO
Yeah.
in New York, right? Like that is the beauty of on chain and the base and forecaster narrative, that it's not exclusive, right? Like the only way we can grow is through this network of I like your vision, I want to bring your vision to other parts of the world, so I'm going to help you do it on your behalf. So all these artists from Tokyo, let's say I host an event in New York, maybe like I don't know what like artist events like, maybe what is it called, like how movies have a screening, what's the similar thing for an artist, like a sound, like a
Like a reception, or it's like before a gallery show or a musical show, a preview show. I don't know.
yeah,
In
yeah,
terms of like a
okay,
private show sort of thing,
listening, yeah, like a
listening party sort of thing.
listening
Yeah,
party, yeah. So
yeah,
what if I
yeah.
host a listening party with a bunch of music
Mm-hmm,
lovers in New York
mm-hmm,
on the behalf of Tokyo Down? Now they're just
mm-hmm.
exposed to a bunch of new artists on chain, and
Yeah.
I feel like that is the way to go, both IRL, because you have now this global network of people that align with your
Mm-hmm,
vision, and two, you have a bunch of new mechanisms for me to, as an artist, to interact with my community. And I think that's in parallel is how this new space of artistry and community is going to go, which is super exciting.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And all for you hosting a Tokyo Dab meetup in New
Oh, I
York.
got it.
You can invite my mom too. She's in town.
Oh
So,
my god.
my parents live in New York. So, but
Then we
yeah, but
have
I
to
mean,
do it.
I think to that point, specifically around Tokyo DAO, like the vision around it. And I think, as mentioned, like a large portion of our members are not from Japan. And so Tokyo DAO is not only
Yeah,
around builders in Japan, but it's about building bridges between builders and creators in Japan and builders and creators
definitely.
outside of Japan who are interested in connecting to Japan. And so, I think that's very much part of the ethos. And I think what's really impressed me more than anything around sort of the base in Farcaster community, and especially around like I invited a bunch of friends into on-chain summer camp, and there's one like
Oh my God.
all star who's killing it out there. Her name's Asami, but
Yes,
she
I've been seeing
is
her,
doing
dude.
great. Yeah,
Killing
she's
it.
crushing it out there. I like
Yeah.
invited her. She had a Farcaster account but wasn't particularly active, but has gone like she was at the first like it was 1 a.m. like the kickoff, and she was in there, and she's been like all in, and so I'm super happy for her. But I think something that has really impressed me talking to other founders, as well as just like really anybody building, or a lot of not everybody, but a lot of folks building in the Farcaster and base ecosystem, is just like everybody having a level of founder and builder mentality, where it's like
Yeah.
if you have a complaint, or if there's something that you would like to exist, you manifest it, or
Yeah.
you reach out to the person who's already building it, or you ask somebody else to build it, and so kind of like just having this builder mentality of like not waiting for things to happen, but
Yeah. Just
affecting
do it.
them, and not speaking about it, but really truly building things into existence. And I think that at times there are real physics constraints of like everything that a single person
Yeah.
can do. But I think, it seems to me that, most folks are, quite, go getter, and like if they have an issue, they go kind of fix it and build the fix
Yeah.
themselves. And so, I think that is bigger. I think that at a community layer is like, Farcaster and Base can continue to attract those sort of folks, that can make those ecosystems much, much bigger. And so, and I think that can bring in people from outside the ecosystem for sure.
Yeah. I'm so happy. And I know, like you mentioned, like the best way to build is to cross collaborate. Like you
Mm-hmm.
FBI X Tokyo DAO.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to grow.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited now because how Farcaster is rapidly growing and how base is rapidly growing outside of the US. At one point it was kind of a US main domain, right? Now we got
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo DAO, now we got FBI, now we got Farcaster in Africa as well. So this global network, I have so many more connections outside of the US now, which is so exciting. Now I have friends all over the world because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm really excited to see this grow. So I've also heard as rumor that Tokyo DAO is flying out people to Tokyo.
May so yes and no, maybe we want to see if we can get some folks to EdCon, if we can, but it's not necessarily
Yeah.
through Tokyo DAO specifically. There is a sort of like scholarship, not scholarship, but like their
Okay.
EdCon is, and Mass Network are funding folks to
Okay.
fly out to Tokyo for EdCon, and so if we can again like manifest in some
Manifest.
capacity a few
Yeah.
folks from summer camp to come out, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. That's amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
lastly, like, what has been your narrative in terms of thesis that you're really excited about on base and Farcaster? Like, for me
Yeah.
personally, it's this IRL-URL connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is it for you?
Yeah, I think that it's a really good question. I think that, in terms of thesis, I guess like the question is like, okay, what is the thesis around, right? Like, I guess
Mhm.
if the thesis is like, how do the base and Farcaster ecosystems grow, or what do I believe like my role is, or Japan's role is in
Yeah,
this,
it could be that.
but I think how I think about it is, especially with just the natural volatility of crypto assets, I think vibes will go up and vibes will go down, and that sort of that ebb and flow will happen, on base in terms of the builder community, on Farcaster in terms of the builder community. But I think, just really trying to build towards longer term value,
Mhm.
and, while trying to create proof of concept, proof of work in sort of this near term. I think I think if people can build very strong brands with really strong, well aligned
Right.
sort of long term value, like I think that will supersede any sort of short term market cycle. And,
Yeah.
I think that there was so much money in action over these last few months on Farcaster that, I think a lot of people are heads down building, but I think
Yeah.
we're also in a relatively quiet period in my mind. But I also think that it means that builders that aren't necessarily in the West, can be seen in a really big and impactful way. And so, I guess if I were to wrap my thesis around in sort of one sort of tight little knot, I guess, or two little tight little knots, is that I think there's a really big opportunity for builders in Asia to put
Yes.
their stamp on the base and Farcaster ecosystem by building like right now. I think
Yeah.
not. I like, with crypto, like there's so many variables that I don't try to guess what like a few years from now looks like to some extent. But, I think what I can say is that like I do think that building right now is quite important. And so,
Yeah.
for builders in Asia to build right now and make their stamp on both the base network and the Farcaster network, as well as, that also being the same for Tokyo, that I think that Tokyo DAO is like happening 2 years earlier than it typically would. And so I guess that's a thesis of sorts, where it's like we like at Tokyo DAO, I do, especially in a country that can be a little bit more conservative in terms of adopting new
Yeah.
technology. I think, that comes in part with like language and cultural barriers, but I think Tokyo DAO sort of building these bridges very early in the life cycle of these networks, and like building very actively and very quickly and with a lot of momentum. I think that we can almost like front run the market cycle that is supposed
Yes.
to
Yeah.
happen a year or two later. And so, I guess the thesis, if you call it a thesis, is just like keep building and continue to build networks within Asia.
Yeah.
So that, I think we tend, especially in Japan too, like look, because we are building on base and Farcaster, we tend to look at the West in regards to
Yeah.
collaborations. But I think there's so many great builders in the Farcaster ecosystem across Asia that,
Right.
we can, especially within the FBI community as well, is that we can, I think look at each other and build together, and build sort of the Farcaster and Base ecosystem in ways that
Yes.
we also want it to be built. And so, I think just keep building, and also building like meaningful community and, products that have a little bit more of a long-term vision. I think there's some
Yep.
very fast moving trends in the near term that are easy to latch onto. But, as we've seen with the value of a lot of the meme coins, that, a lot of them are still near and dear to me, but, how they've
Yeah.
looked since, a couple months ago, I think that, long term, and not to say a lot of those aren't good brands underneath. And I think a lot of them will, a lot of them, especially the ones that are built in the cycle, will survive long term. But, at the same time, just building products and brands that really have a greater vision than tomorrow, I
Yeah.
think that is crucial for sort of success, past this current like let's keep our heads down building phase.
Yeah, yeah. Love it. I absolutely love it. And it's good you guys are early. It's good Tokyo does early. It's good FBI is early because you guys are the right people building up these communities. This is what is going to inspire all other communities pop out around Asia and other countries as well. So the right time is when all of these other communities are going to start popping out, and Tokyo Da, FBI, these are going to set as examples. So I'm glad and I'm really excited for this international storm to occur on
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Farcaster and this. Yes. Thank you, Ren. I have to end off, we have a fun rapid fire round. It's like
Oh
just
my goodness.
four fun questions. Just gonna
Okay,
throw it at you
cool.
and then get some fun responses and feel free to
Hmm.
explain your um,
Gotcha.
whatever you choose. All
Yeah.
right, ready? Okay, the
Yes.
first question.
Okay.
Would you rather have 50,000 DGen or the OG NFT?
50,000 degen or the OG NFT? I'd probably say 50,000 degen.
All right, why is that?
Because I can it's more flexibility with what I can do with it. And I could probably make
Yeah.
50,000 degen into yeah, just all different types of value. And so
Yeah.
I would take the 50,000 degen.
Okay, awesome. Who are your top three favorite builders in the Farcaster ecosystem currently?
I saw you ask that question to somebody else, so I was like, let's see if I'll get asked this on. Yeah, so top three. I know like the top two like that come immediately,
Sure,
like
yeah.
top of mind. And so like Undefined is one of my favorite builders on
Okay.
Farcaster, if you're familiar with him at all. He builds a lot of little toys on Farcaster. He built
Oh,
the translate cast action for the Japanese community as well,
oh
or
wow.
sort of first. And so he's just been he like ships like crazy, and he's also a very
Nice.
funny, exciting guy. And then yeah, Somu-san, which is what he goes by now, for me.
Really?
So
Somu-san?
yeah, he has a san at the end of his name now. So
Nice.
he's Somu-san for me. And so
Somu-san.
yeah, just in terms of the what I really admire about what he's done from like a community building perspective is just the I think just embracing the chaos to some extent, but also like
Yeah.
build just like going full on head first and continuing to build. And so I think that's something that I really admire. And the third one, I'm just gonna it's a bit of a self pump, but it's not quite a self pump. Is that like our CTO Ryoma is like one of the most underrated builders on Farcaster. So along with his work for SenseBase and building card and ball and stuff like that, he also is one of the lead engineers for Code for Japan, which is a
Oh wow.
NGO that provides engineering resources to sort of public good initiatives. And so he is really just a really really smart, clever, accomplished engineer, and also has a very good product mindset. And he was a finalist at Farhack this year as well.
Oh wow.
And so I think he's somebody that we'll hope get more and more attention as we start to build more. But
Yeah.
I should have put him first, but
It's
he's
all right
my
as long as
third
you
there.
mentioned it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'm
yeah.
glad. I like asking this question because now I also get to learn about new builders.
Hmm.
I'm definitely gonna check out Undefined and Neoma now
Perfect,
with this.
perfect.
But yeah, great. All right. Next question. Where if you could travel like anywhere in this world, like where would you go immediately?
Immediately. Oh my goodness. Uh, something didn't pop into my head immediately. I'm on chain too much, and so
Yeah,
uh,
I know.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess like I'm the type of person. Like this is gonna sound really jaded, but like I've have gone to a lot of different places, but I think it's about who who you would go to
Who?
see
Okay.
in these
Yeah.
sort of places. And so I'd love to see everybody come to Tokyo first, if I could
Bro,
choose,
I think
versus
you
me
should.
traveling. But then if I were to go somewhere else, right? If I were to go somewhere else, I guess today I'd probably go meet the Farcaster Builders India folks in India and talk about like get it,
Ooh,
understand the context more. Because to be honest, I
okay.
don't at all. And so I know there's such a rich builder population, but like how do people think about what is the Web3 context and like feeling it
India.
as opposed to just like hearing it out loud.
Yeah, that's why
And so
it's different.
yeah, yeah, and so that's I guess I've never been to India before, so that's high on my list. Bless you.
Thank you. India's amazing. I think like Proxy and Sam went as well, and they're like can't stop talking about it. But yeah, I said it'll be fun for you to come, and we need
Yeah,
to host the next FarCon in Japan, in Tokyo. I feel like
it'll
everyone would
happen.
fly all over the world. It'll be
Yeah,
amazing.
for sure.
Okay, great, awesome. And last question. What is your favorite chain from the super chain?
What's my
Do you
favorite
have a
chain
favorite?
from the super chain? I'm not so the political question, the political answer. I think the beauty of building at the community and content and application layers that I do think that you can be quite flexible around where you work within the superchain
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Okay. Smart answer. Smart
And
answer.
so I would say everything, but uh,
Yeah.
I think that it's a really good question. No, I'm not.
There
I think
isn't
a
a
lot of them
favorite.
have there. Yeah, I don't have a favorite. I think I see opportunities around each of the different chains in each of the different contexts. Like you see, ARB is more active in like more the public goods side, and I've seen some public goods
Right.
projects use ARB.
Yeah.
I've seen what is it? I've seen like Base is is still very nascent in terms of the consumer side here, but I think that's a big opportunity space. I think
Yeah.
that like Zora is it's so strange, like or like the one of one stuff has been pretty big and active in
Yeah.
Japan for the last couple of years, but
Really?
like the Zora free mint culture has like or not act or somewhat free mint culture has not like hit here yet. And so like
I
I
think it
think that
will.
is like a huge people are just starting like now, which is like crazy. But I think like that part of the NFT culture is not hit yet, and once that hits, I think that'll change a lot in terms of NFT perception. And so, like I actually ran a Zora workshop a few months ago here at like a
Oh,
Harajuku shopping facility for a bunch of like young creative folks, and that was a lot of fun. But
amazing.
yeah, so I see like big opportunities for Zora in that context, and so like it's I think it's there are opportunities for everyone, and so I'm not particularly. I think the opportunities for the super chain on the whole.
Yeah, no, I was that was just a test question. You're so right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for
Nice.
that. That was an awesome response. But this was amazing. Thank you, Ren, for coming on and sharing all these amazing insights. Like, generally had a really great time learning about all stuff around Tokyo DAO in Japan, and I'm really excited to see Tokyo DAO grow, and do a lot more collabs. And hopefully, we can do a event here in New York for Tokyo DAO. I would love to see that.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, if
Yeah,
I when I'm back home sometime, we'll make it happen. And I don't
let's
even
do
need to
it.
be there. I don't even need to be there. We
Yeah,
could
you
we
don't need
could.
to be there.
You have we're permissionless culture here.
We'll jam on
You
it. We'll jam on it.
yeah
We'll get
yeah
together. But yeah,
exactly
thank you,
exactly
Ren. Yeah.
yeah no thank you
Awesome. All right. We'll see you soon.
yeah
Bye.
all right cool thanks bye.